Since no one has been watching my latest video, I'm gonna be starting this one with some controversial affirmations. First of all, the earth is flat. And it's not only flat, it's as flat as a pizza. Second of all, Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
Do not... What is going on? What are you doing? Michael! Oh, that's funny. Michael! No! God, please, no!
Today we're going to be talking about Ozark, and that's mostly because no one has been talking about Ozark. That's why I decided to make this video here, because to be honest, it's one of the best series about smuggling drugs and laundering money that we've seen since Breaking Bad. It's not one of my favorite subgenre. Of course, I've not seen all of them.
No, Mr. White!
But I do really appreciate when it's well done, when it has interesting characters, especially if they are well written and if it's realistic and it's not really just focusing on mafia stuff. And I feel like Ozark, across its 4 seasons, has managed to stumble across a lot of different issues, but has also gotten out of a lot of them. So it's not your typical gangster drama that you're seeing here. It is everyday people trying to outsmart each other and a lot of different people trying to achieve their goals. 4 seasons was 100% the best choice when it comes to this series here, even though I'm 100% sure that they could have shortened it to 3, because the 4th season and the 3rd season could have been put together without a doubt. And we're gonna be covering a lot of the mistakes that the last season of Ozark did, which were at the end of the day things that were set up in the 3rd season that I didn't really like, to be honest. It's quite a successful series because it has received a total of 32 Primetime Emmy Award nominations, including 2 for Outstanding Drama Series. Bateman himself, he got 2 nominations for Outstanding Actor in a Drama Series, and also some Golden Globe nominations. Actually, Julia Garner won the prize Outstanding Supporting Actress twice in a row in 2019 and 2020. So it is a show that has been gathering a lot of attention, especially in the States. Not that much here in Europe. I haven't talked about Ozark with anyone surrounding me. I feel like it's one of those shows that it's really adult oriented, meaning that it's a lot of boomers that are gonna be watching it, so a lot of 40, 50, maybe 60-year-olds, and not as many millennials.
Let's go. Move.
The only person that I talk to when it comes to this show here is my dad, and I'm actually the one who forced the show on him, and he ended liking it quite a lot. And he's really into that kind of stuff when it comes to Narcos and all the different spin-offs, Breaking Bad of course, which I forced him to watch once again. One thing that I really love when it comes to Ozark, it's the attention to details that really mirrors what they did in Breaking Bad when it comes to the different symbolism that you could find across the different episodes and seasons. When it comes to Ozark, you just have to look at the title sequence, for example, where we've got the O of Ozark appearing, and then the layout of 4 pictures being drawn and representing specific plot lines that will be handled within the episode itself. And basically all of these images are not only foreshadowing things that will happen across the episode, but they are also writing the title of the show itself. So O-Z-A-R-K.
How do you spell that?
I wish I could tell you.
O-Z-A-R-K. And I found that it's quite cool, especially because it probably takes a long time when you think about it, if every single episode has to have a different title sequence on its own. And from a graphic designer perspective, it must be really challenging to make sure that images not only relate to the episode's plot line, but also look like letters. And it kind of reminded me of stuff that you'd see in Breaking Bad, that the creators were hiding things within like license plates. Spoiler alert for Breaking Bad, but for example, if you remember the pink teddy bear that was found in Eisenberg's pool. That teddy bear there, if you remember correctly, it was burnt on one side of its face, missing one eye, and the other side was in really good state. And that, of course, is something that would pay off almost 2 seasons later with the death of Gus Fring. And of course, this is only one detail, but I just really appreciate when series can do that kind of stuff, because it really pays off when it comes to repeated viewings. Other things that I like when it comes to Ozark, when it comes to its symbolism, it's very related to the character development of Jonah and just how he relates to weapons and how he uses the shotguns in different ways across the different seasons, and how it is almost an extension of himself.
Okay, yes, I did have your uncle killed because it had to be done, because he would have fucked up all of our lives. That is true.
Pretty macabre, but to be honest, Ozark is a series that is quite cool, that is quite macabre. I really connected with the cinematography since the very beginning of the first season. It is very cold, it is presenting a lot of dark, saturated colors, and it was quite different from what we got, for example, when it comes to Breaking Bad, which was shooting everything with this really dry and dirty look.
Yo, 148, 3 to the 3 to the 6 to the 9, representing the ABQ. What up, biatch? Leave it tone.
It really worked quite well, and I loved how they decided to represent this area here of the United States, because it is not an area that we tend to associate with those kind of crimes, because it looks very perfect, it looks very posh, but at the end of the day, crime is lurking under the surface of every single area. And also the fact that, for example, this series is about like the corruption of the suburban family, and also about, of course, the challenges that people tend to face when they're desperately trying to achieve that American dream and trying to build a fortune for their family. And how at the end of the day, when you're focusing on the money, on the respect, and on the family name, you kind of tend to forget about taking care of your actual family members, making sure that emotionally and psychologically speaking, they are growing up in the most optimal ways.
Patience, frugality, sacrifice. When you boil it down, what do those 3 things have in common? Those are choices. Money is not peace of mind. Money is not happiness. Money is, at its essence, that measure of a man's choices.
There are a lot of other things that I liked when it comes to performances and the characters specifically. For example, I didn't know that Jason Bateman was such a good actor, and it is thanks to Ozark that I started to take him seriously as a dramatic actor. It is even more apparent in the final season here and the last part of the final season, where he has to replace Navarro and he goes to Mexico. There are a lot of scenes where like you can really feel all the tension growing inside him, and the fact that he cannot scream, he cannot cry, he cannot emote a single thing when it comes to his face, because it could be interpreted as weakness.
You come anywhere near me, my family, or Ruth again, the next time you see your son, he's gonna be hanging from a bridge in Juarez. You got that?
The whole Bird family has had to get a little bit more creative in the things that they're able to justify for the ends.
And I feel like those episodes tend to be the strongest when it comes to Ozark. All the episodes that took place in Mexico and all the episodes that were putting face to face the cartel and the birds, and especially when they made sure that they didn't feel safe at all. Maybe a tiny thing that I could say that I didn't like about this, and it felt like wasted potential, was the fact that there wasn't a lot of difference when it comes to how they decided to shoot all the scenes that they were making at the lake of Ozark and the scenes that they were shooting in Mexico, basically. Because when you think about it, all the scenes that take place at the Navarro Villa, they are indoor shots. There is not a lot of outside stuff going on, and it's a bit of a shame because it makes it feel like this entire country is just this house. So it makes it feel very low budget when you think about it, and it's kind of sad because I feel like they could have developed that part of the plot a little bit more without going too much into Breaking Bad stuff, of course, because we already have Breaking Bad for the Breaking Bad stuff. If we go back to the performances, I liked Bateman in The Outsider as well, and I really recommend that series if you like Stephen King weird psychological stuff. Came out in 2020, but I didn't really like him in Arrested Development, so he was always an actor that I felt really meh about him. And thanks to Ozark, he really showcased all the talent that he has.
I have a very hard time talking about characters in a objectified way when I'm still doing them. Maybe in a few years I'll be able to look back at it and have a better idea. Wendy, she's complicated, she's loving, she's angry, she's hungry, she's scared, she's frustrated, she's all of those things that I think many people are.
Another actress that I really liked is Laura Linney, playing Wendy, of course. She's really channeling that kind of Rosamund Pike in Gone Girl energy. She's really cold, really manipulative. She's really hard to love. If you've seen the last season, you know what I mean. As a character, but also as a person. And I really like the way that she was written, especially because it was really obvious to understand what she was trying to achieve and what she wanted and what she needed as a person to feel fulfilled.
Cool girl is game. Cool girl is fun. Cool girl never gets angry at her man. She only smiles in a chagrin-loving manner and then presents her mouth for fucking.
But at the same time, it shows how she's unable to keep control over her family and over her business and over everyone else, especially when she keeps trying to do everything by herself and she doesn't rely on other people. This is something that she really needs to learn, and I feel like they should have worked on it a bit more across the final season, because it really feels like they learn all their mistakes in the final few scenes and they come together as a family really at the very end of the show, which is a bit of a shame because it doesn't really feel very natural. It just feels like they wanted to wrap things up as fast as possible, and they realized that they built up so many things in the third season and at the beginning of the fourth season that it was almost impossible to wrap all things when it comes to the plot and wrap all the things when it came to the characters, everything perfectly.
The first season of Ozark was very hard for me because I'm not aggressive. You know, I don't have the confidence that Ruth has.
Very fun.
Shut the fuck up! I'm working with Martin so I can learn how to launder for us.
Julia Garner as Ruth is incredible, and I enjoy the performance a lot. She's an incredibly attaching character, and I really like the fact that this really goes against the typecasting when it comes to the idea of fridging characters to enhance the character motivations of someone else. When I talk about fridging, by the way, I mean specifically the fact that a male character very often his all ideals, his all goals, and his all personality can be based on the death or the sickness or the savior complex that is motivated by another woman.
You're on camera, say something.
Last night and night before, there was 3 women walking down the street that way. I saw them. I said, hey, you 3 women, why are y'all walking down the street that way? There's nothing down there. And they flew away. I said, oh, them were some birds.
And when you think about it, Ruth is really the reverse of the fridging cinematic trope, where her entire family almost has to be entirely wiped out for her to gain control over her life fully, just because of the whole patriarchal way of how everything works within her family. And I think she calls it like the Langmore curse. And I think it works quite well at the end of the day, even though we know the tragic ending of the series because at the end of the day she dies, but I will be addressing that in the next few minutes. I still want to praise and give some resolution when it comes to the whole series here. In the series we've got a fair share of different FBI agents and Navarro cartel bodyguards or right-hand man or whatever. When it came to the FBI agents, for example, I really enjoy Roy, who was there in the first few seasons. He was the first FBI character who was investigating the Bird family, and he went a little bit insane, but that plotline worked quite well, and that's also why I wasn't particularly interested in the Mel storyline, because it really felt like they were rethreading the same kind of stuff that they were doing in the first and the second season. Plus the actor who plays Mel looks a lot like the actor who was playing Roy. They almost look exactly the same, so I was really confused in my head. I was just like, can this person just disappear? Because it feels like they were just adding another subplot to the story that wasn't really worth it.
I think your brother Ben killed her, and now you're protecting him.
Why would you think that?
I mean, look, she gets him tossed in the bin, and he gets out, none too pleased, I bet. You know, he's prone to flying off the handle, and now she's missing, and, well, so's he.
I hate him so much.
Yeah.
And I really feel like we could have still gotten the same ending that we got with this final episode here without having Mel, and especially without having him die at the hands of Jonah and his shotgun. The Snells are quite fascinating, to be honest. I really like the way that this show here kind of represents the redneck cliche of characters in a more three-dimensional way, and I feel like all the plot twists concerning those kind of characters worked quite well, especially also when she gets married to Ruth's cousin as well, and everything that develops after that. Even though I don't like the way that Ruth is being ping-ponged from one side of the court to the other, same goes for Jonah. It just felt like they were dragging the plot a bit too much. I'm not really a huge fan of the character Ben, so Wendy's brother, but I did really enjoy Tom Pelphrey's performance, especially because I only knew him from Iron Fist, and he wasn't really good in that.
As you know, I'm a man of special needs. You will now receive the Fist of Fury. Prepare the long rubber glove. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I wonder where my glove will go. Something's in my ass.
So just because of that reason, I will praise his performance, but at the end of the day, I just felt like Ben wasn't really providing anything besides just being a disrupting force for the family, just to show that it was impossible to control him. And at the end of the day, if you can't control something, you just have to destroy it. That was the message, and that's something that they do over and over again. When it comes to the Ozark different seasons, at some point there's not even a plot twist anymore. It just feels very cold, it feels very cynical, and it doesn't really feel as emotionally impactful. For example, we get a flashback in the last season of the last moments that we see Ben alive, where he's being driven around by another bodyguard working for the Navarro cartel, and it's completely useless, just there to make us feel sad once more for Ben, but at the end of the day it doesn't really add any more information. It doesn't add anything when it comes to the character development of that person, besides the fact that if he wasn't there, he would have stayed alive, and that's it. Felix Solis, who's played Omar Navarro, is incredible. He's literally carrying so many different scenes and episodes on his shoulders, and I really like the way that he was portraying that type of character.
You lie to your wife, you lie to me, and you lie to yourself. What do you want?
And then we've got someone who is really the opposite of Omar, who is Javi, who is a character that I really despised from the very first episode that I saw him, mostly because I knew that he was just gonna bring trouble. He's kind of the character that really reminds me of the Joker, meaning that he's the representation of chaos. You never know exactly what he's gonna do, you never know exactly what his character motivations are. despite the fact that he wants to win and kill everyone, and he doesn't really care about his family because he's ready to step on them as fast as possible. He's not even an opportunist because at the end of the day he makes a lot of really weird choices, and at the same time he kind of acts like a child because he does a lot of murder around our favorite characters, and he always expects them to clean up after him.
Mentioned it started as kind of an inside joke in the writer's room when they were like, what if Darlene and Wyatt went together?
He didn't really feel like an actual human being. He just felt like a smoking gun ready to shoot at anyone who the plot needed to die, you know?
Is something wrong?
What if I offered you $2 million, but I said I wanted my name in a building? Or I could beat the living shit out of you, and the donation would be anonymous.
I feel like Ozark is really loved mostly because of how realistic it feels when it comes to the dealings of the FBI, but also the Navarro cartel. And I like also how the FBI is shown to be so incredibly overbearing, trying to pretend that they are in control of everything, while at the same time they don't control shit and they're being used by everyone all the time because they just underestimate everyone. At the end of the day, Ozark was really about the loss of humanity of certain people if they were blindsided by their following of the American dream and by the idea of becoming the most quintessential perfect American family. Breaking Bad, for example, was at the end of the day about redeeming yourself from all the different mistakes that you did. And I like the fact that the ending of Ozark is quite bleak because it shows that they've suffered for so long, they've been working so hard to become such an important family, and their hands are so completely drenched in the blood of their enemies. There is no getting that stain of their soul, and they'll have to keep working on that because it's what they have to do right now because they want to reap what they sow.
And what more do you want in a murder and mayhem show besides chaos and excitement?
What the fuck is that?
And I also like the idea that the final season of Ozark was really about how everything comes with a cost, and at the end of the day it was the cost of the humanity of their children, and it was the cost of being a good person. I really like the entire journey that Marty goes through in the final season, for example, in the idea that he wants to be perceived as a good guy and that he's trying his best to make sure that everybody likes him at the end of the day. Ozark is really good at portraying the way that capitalism kind of intrudes itself in the lives of people in so many different ways. And one really good message that I found was the fact that you can't really win at everything, and it's really obvious in the very last episode of the show where Wendy, for example, once she has realized that they don't need, for example, to get Navarro off the SDN list, she decides to go to the other politician and tell him that they're pulling off the voting machines from Wisconsin, so the ones that were being corrupted. And at the end of the day, she loses that contact there that she might have used in the future for anything else, or even that she might have used to save Ruth's life. So at the end of the day, it's kind of funny how they kind of like tied their own hands at their back, and at the end of the day they had to face the consequences. The final episode was really about facing consequences when it came to all the different characters and deciding who they wanted to be when it comes to the future.
You suggested this life.
We chose this together.
You were a good salesman.
The entire Ben plotline and all the different police searches that were going on concerning him, they didn't really feel that emotionally impactful, mostly because, first of all, Wendy doesn't really react in the most emotional way possible when it comes to the loss of her brother, especially during the entire season, not when they realize that she's gotten him killed, but also because there are so many different people who died across this season here. So many different investigations trying to find out why they disappeared, where they disappeared, what are all the links in between the people disappearing. And this really feels like yet another investigation about yet another secondary character who is being killed off to mask another crime or whatever.
I'm sorry.
Hey.
You're a fucking liar, and I'm gonna kill you.
Ruth?
I'm gonna kill you if you
No,
don't
you
tell
won't.
me.
No, you are not. Relax.
Now that we're the 4th season, it really feels like the investigation that really made me go like, this is enough. I'm not really caring as much. I've read a lot of articles saying that this season should have been like at least half the length that we got at the end of the day. And I really agree when it comes to that. I really liked, for example, all the different Ruth storylines where she's trying to construct her own future, for example. But it is very obvious that when she kills one of the cartel members, especially a really important one, she's 100% sealed her fate, right? There is no way that she's gonna be able to survive that. Another thing that I really don't like when it comes to the 4th season is the car accident. That makes no sense. It really shows like how this show has been adding different subplots to create plot twists that are supposed to feel quite clever and interesting and like quality TV, you know? But at the end of the day, this really showed how you can create something impactful and just completely make it useless once you get the reveal of what was actually going on. Because at the end of the day, the car accident that we see at the beginning of the 1st season was actually just a normal car accident. It wasn't an attempt on their life. It was nothing but pure chance. And actually the showrunner Chris Mundy, who wrote the finale as well, he positions the accident as a moment that bonds the family and heals the long-standing rift between Wendy and her kids, particularly Jonah. And that makes sense technically, but I really feel like they could have done it in a better way, because it really set up the expectations in their minds that that was going to be a lot more important than it actually was at the end of the day. No one is hurt after that car accident. I don't believe it for a single second. It would have been quite interesting actually if someone got really hurt and went to the hospital and was under a coma or something like that. And that's what actually brought the family together. The realization that at the end of the day, even though there are like cartel members, FBI agents and secret PI agents who are trying to kill them and put them in jail, just a weird ass accidents could do it on an everyday basis, and that they can't control that and they can't control everything when it comes to other people's lives. I feel like that could have linked together the family a lot more. There is this moment when Wendy is trying to manipulate the children. Once again, she gets herself committed in a mental institution, and basically Marty threatens Ruth, being like, if you don't find a way to get my children back from their grandfather, I will tell the cartel that you killed Javi. That is a really serious threat. And at the end of the day, everything is perfectly tied up as a bow. I really enjoyed the scene when Ruth is threatening the grandfather. It works quite well. It was really intense.
Is that language you can understand? She was a slut and an embarrassment.
You're gonna tell them exactly what you just told me, or I'll shoot you in your fucking head.
But at the end of the day, I really didn't like the scene that comes right after, where Marty and Ruth are like talking to each other as if nothing happened, as if like Marty didn't really threaten her life with this thing here. And it just felt really unnatural, especially because that is the final scene that they share together before she actually gets murdered. So it really felt like the showrunner was trying to make us feel good about how their relationship ended at the end of the day when it comes to Marty and Ruth. And it's a bit sad because they had a really strong relationship, and it felt quite weird that Ruth would let that pass, you know?
He said, hey, I need to talk to you. And I said, what? And he said, and I said, wait, let me guess. I said, am I dying? And he said, yeah. How'd you know? I said, it is like a Greek tragedy.
I also feel like the way that she's killed is handled in really poor taste, because we get this weird slow motion of the bullet going into her and just her falling to the ground, and that's it. It just didn't feel like she was a main character dying. It felt like a side character death. Wouldn't it felt a lot more powerful if she was shot in a non-lethal way, and that if she dropped to the floor and the camera kind of tilted up, focusing on her face, and then Camilla looking at her as she drowned in her own blood, and us just being forced to look into Ruth's eyes as she dies. I feel like that would have been a lot more emotionally impactful, and also it would have been more fair for the character herself, because here it really feels like we're distancing ourselves from her while we shouldn't be distancing ourselves. This is the moment where we should be as close as possible. And then we get this final scene where Mel has actually broken into the bird's house, gathering, you know, the cookie jar where Ben's ashes are buried in, and he's basically threatening them, being like, you don't get to win, you don't get to be the Cox or the Kennedys, the world doesn't work like that. And then Wendy says, since when? And then we get the scene with Jonah holding the shotgun and cut to black, right? And I actually really enjoyed the fact that we get those weird, like, devious smiles on their parents' face, being like, oh, now we're actually a family. We're once again committing crimes all together. But I feel like this was really stupid, because at the end of the day, this guy is threatening them with stolen evidence that he found in their house. So it's never gonna go to court at the end of the day. It's never gonna work. Instead of killing him, they could have just threatened him and taken the jar away. Or something even more interesting that could have been quite cool as well. Maybe they could have shot that scene so that Mel didn't actually look through the jar and he was waiting for the bird's family to do it in front of them, so that he would have that haha moment. And then as he does that, there is nothing inside it, or maybe there are actually cookies. And then Jonah appears there with the shotgun and being like, get the fuck off our property. Basically revealing that Jonah actively decided to hide the ashes and put them somewhere else safe, and once again reuniting with the family and showing that he was part of all the different crimes and that he wanted to stick around with the family and that he actually learned something, instead of just being there with the gun ready to shoot at him, showing that they managed to outsmart everyone at the end of the day in almost like a devilish kind of way, you know, like it's almost not fair that they managed to get out of all of this so beautifully clean. Because after that cut to blacks, we know what's gonna happen. They'll have to destroy the evidence once again, they'll have to burn the body, then someone else is gonna at the end of the day investigate the disappearance of Mel, and it's vicious cycle that repeats itself across all the different seasons of Ozark, which has become quite stale. So I feel like if at the end of the day they managed to outsmart even him, even though they didn't know, they could never guess that he would do something like that, like break in their house and steal the cookie jar. Just the kind of like divine justice thing of they actually fixed the problem before that the problem actually appeared, that would have felt a lot more interesting, and it would have felt more satisfying than Jonah just killing the man, right? I mean, when it comes to the final season, there are a lot of things happening, but not a lot of emotional depth. When it comes, for example, the final episode, when you think about it, there are so many things happening, there are so many things that are just trying to resolve it themselves in the fastest way possible. Like by the beginning of the finale, Wendy has checked herself into the mental hospital, as I said before. She has checked herself out, she has won back her kids, and she's ready to host like this huge gala at Missouri Belle. I mean, like, it's really obvious that all the moving parts of the plot are like taking the priority instead of looking at Wendy's mental health and really dealing with the fact that she's not a person that is doing really well. And it just felt like this priority here didn't really serve the character development of all our favorite characters, and it was a bit of a shame.
Talk to her like that one more time, I make a single phone call and have you killed.
What the fuck did you just say?
You heard me.
Just get back.
Want me to repeat it?
Get back in your fucking car.
Fuck you, bitch.
Oh, suck my cock, asshole.
I wanted to end this video with like a beautiful quote that I found from another reviewer who was talking about the finale here. And this person is saying, that's the essence of Ozark. As thrilling as it could be, the series will ultimately as empty as the I love you that Wendy and Marty exchange when they return home from the gala. It was a show about cool people with chilly visuals and a hard slab of ice at its center that, like so many binge-focused Netflix series, took a hairpin narrative turns over and over until the very end. Then it just stopped. As if there was nothing more to say because it didn't have anything terribly meaningful to say to begin with. I'm happy that I finally managed to rant a little bit about Ozark. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of things that I forgot, but the thing is, there are so many things happening in Ozark that it's almost impossible to keep track of what's happening. I don't remember most of the names of all the different like bodyguards that work for the Navarro cartel. Like, it's impossible to remember them because they die like flies and they disappear like flies as well, and they keep growing back like mushrooms. I enjoyed talking about Ozark. I hope that you enjoyed it as well. Let me know what you thought of the Ozark finale down in the comments. Let me know if you liked the series overall and if you imagined also a different ending for it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Every single like that you drop will go to Ruth's memory, because the Langmore curse deserves to be destroyed. And even though she has one surviving cousin, I wanted her to survive. She was way too clever, she improved way too much, she suffered way too much to die in such a cold and cynical way, and it just made me really sad. I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
What is also interesting is that I don't give a shit.
Alright, let's tell each other a secret about ourselves. I'm gonna go first. I hate you.
2 shots of vodka. Then 1. When will you learn that your actions have consequences?